this is all right. So this is the monthly CocoaPods like catch up, I guess. We're trying to figure out what we've done and what we're doing. Um, the rough agenda for the chat is how Swift support's going, then sort of how we can improve Carthage support within CocoaPods, both from the web perspective and from like the actual client. A little bit about the Rails Girls Summer of Code that we have happening in a month or two, maybe. Then some of the stuff that we've got on CocoaPod stats, and then finally like try and get a sense of the native framework integration, and just what we can do there. So, Marius, can you let us? How is the biggest blocker right now on Swift stuff the targets deduplication? This keeps popping up in my emails.
Yeah, so this is definitely a big thing which is still open. There's some minor things around that to fix, but this should solve a bunch of issues we had in the last couple of weeks, especially when you have extensions, when you have WatchKit apps, which are nothing else. Yeah, and by deduplicating the targets, we solve a bunch of issues with that because Xcode isn't really able to handle additional scoped dependencies. And by the deduplicating, we don't need to scope them further than Xcode usually does. And we could use more of the native possibilities to integrate them into the app, and so we can avoid to solve all the edge cases by ourselves.
Cool, that makes sense. From my perspective, I've been trying to add Swift support to podlib create, which is now both a pull request on the guides that improves the page that you normally run through that tells you like what are the questions and what do they mean and what is the eventual outcome of all of this process. And that hit a roadblock or two on the way, but all of that's done now. I'm just trying to clean up any of the other issues that we have there, which tend to be like I'm using spaces or plus symbols or Unicode in my my pod name, and having to deal with that with the XML parsing that we have to do in order to generate the templates. Should be out maybe today. So that should be good. Which kind of neatly brings us on to the next one, I guess, of Carthage support. Just in general, on the website side, I've been looking at including Carthage on Cocoa Docs, and then including like a flag in our database that says whether this library actually generates a framework when you run Carthage install on it, and then using that, like the output of that, to then say whether it supports it or not, and then later exposing that in the web as an API, like as just another metric that we have, and we can probably even include quality metric on that, because if they're caring that much, then it's probably a good metric that the library author cares. Do you know if there's much that we could do on the client side to improve, like aside from the Xcode projects, I guess, that Ally wants to take? No.
Yep.
Cool. With respect to the Rails Girls Summer of Codes, let's have a quick look at that. It says mentors. Okay, so I'm pretty sure it starts. Uh, oh no, I do not know when it starts. What to expect? Dialogue, morning stand-ups, time management. No, it just tells you, but it never gives you a date on the website. So March kickoff, the seventh month. Anyone know what the seventh month is? July. So a month and a half.
Yep.
Um, by which point we may be in a nice position to then start looking at the like decoupling of the plug of the actual gem into multiple gems. Do you have a sense of how that feels, Sam?
Um, it's mostly just going to be refactoring. Um, the hardest one is obviously going to be uh, moving Xcode integration into a plugin.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair. I mean, a bunch of these things are well tested though already.
yeah, so the issue with that isn't the test coverage. It's just that Xcode integration is kind of all throughout CocoaPods, and the way like installation is structured, it's very intertwined. Um,
Yeah.
but if we could extract it, it would mean that supporting other installation strategies would necessarily become a lot easier, because it would have to be decoupled, and we'd have to build sort of the infrastructure for a more generic notion of an installation.
Hmm.
Um,
So then, when it's time to support Android with, oh, actually, with with Windows Phone with your Objective C projects, um, yeah, that's fair. I mean, there's some easy stuff to start with, right? So like the UI could probably be taken out. The UI module, I guess.
yeah, no, that's like a really easy one. Could can take some stuff out of CL8 as well.
Yeah, cool. No, that's great. As long as we got some nice like incremental steps for them to start feeling like they're progressing bit by bit. I think that will be really cool. I think they'll get a lot out
Definitely.
of it. Yeah, great. What do we have? Okay, so with respect to stats, it's been where are we now? So I've got a fully working prototype from the client side. So with respect to sending all data up, everything looks pretty solid. Um, it sends it all into it pushes every single pod as its own every on a pod install it pushes every public pod as its own unique event going up from our server. Like our server takes a chunk of pod install data and then splits it all up and then sends them all up as individual analytics events, and then each of those analytics events becomes a row on a unbelievably large database eventually. um, And so I've just got started. Like I've got that now to a point where I've been talking with Segment, and they've said like the structure of your data now looks good. Uh, and I'm just starting to look at doing like daily rake tasks that will be pulling out that data into our database that will then say, this pod has been installed in 5 watch apps. This pod has been installed in 10 applications, as well as this pod has been, downloaded 2 billion times or whatever, like you normally see. I think we'll be able to have like that difference. I think will be a really interesting metric with respect to having a real sense of how much your library is being used versus this extremely vague raw number that gets thrown off by continuous integration really easily. Um, I want to get that done within a month, I guess. So that's not too far. Everything seems to be in place. And then just try and release that plugin and try and persuade people to use it for a beta period, I guess, and then push it into master somehow, either as the plugin or integrated in the core somewhere. Oh, yes, I have a problem. I still haven't figured out how to make it do the sending them asynchronously. I'm using NAP, which doesn't really seem to be built
Well, it
that
doesn't
way.
come with asynchronous requests built in. So, is there an issue on the stats plugin
I
for
think,
sending it asynchronously?
yes, I think you made that.
It wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, we can do this by basically just forking
Yeah,
and daemonizing a process that sends it synchronously. Um,
yeah, because it's not a blocker. Like literally, if you've completed pod install, it should just complete pod install regardless of the state of this. If
yeah,
the
so
request fails, then
I'll, I'll I'll assign this to I assigned it to myself. I'll try and get to it next week.
cool. No worries. That's not a blocker, so do it when it feels fun. Um, yeah, that should be nice and easy. Yeah, that's stats. That's almost there. That's looking good now. Um, and finally, there was the native framework integration, and I guess the other issue that I created earlier that was like, what if Rome was a default in as an option in CocoaPods as part of your pod file? No, me and Boris went through on an issue somewhere like on the CocoaPods. Like both of those kind of attack the same problem. So I'd be happier to just have one other integration strategy there. But a lot of it is the sense that like we do have a large amount of overhead that we could kill out optionally for a user that chooses to rather than to not. And like the native framework integration was an interesting aspect of it. And so is a Carthage style drag it in yourself. Got a sense of that, Sam? Marius? What do you think?
Um, I think it's something that we want to. I think it's something that's feasible now that we have frameworks, and I think it's something we want to support.
So it's reasonable, Marius?
Yeah, for sure. So it will be easier to support with the DD application. I mean, it's worked better. Once that it's shipped, then yeah. Um, we will have to see how we solve the edge cases when you can't use the DD application, and perhaps there are edge cases in between. For example, if you have a configuration-dependent pod, this could be an issue with that, because Xcode has no possibility to yeah embed a framework only for given configuration.
Config. Yeah. I mean, this might be a place where we could say that maybe that feature just won't work with this. Like, if it's an option in your pod file, then you've manually gone and turned that on. So outright saying, yeah, config based pods can't work with this system.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, we will need then put effort into it to let the analyzer warn about that before trying to integrate it to make a nice user experience out of it. So, as we will probably need continuously both ways of integrating and embedding frameworks, it will be probably just easier to have both.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, that seems cool.
Which are more edge cases which could break for users, and yeah. It's not less
I believe,
but
but they'll become more visible as
You there?
I think auto just freezed.
to it, I presume.
Otto, are you back?
Okay. If my network is starting to fall apart, it might be a good time to start calling it and say like meeting adjourned. It meant we kept it nice and simple, unless you guys have anything you want to bring up.
No?
Nothing from my side.
Cool, great. I'll see if I can push more people into the next month. But I did only give it a few days' notice, so I'll try and. Is Saturday an alright time to do this? Is this an alright time to do this?
Um, I Yeah, it's not great for me, but it works.
Yeah. It's like 7 in the evening for me, which I presume is like 8, 9-ish for Marius.
8. We have 8 o'clock, so yeah, I have doubts it's the best time to reach European and especially German force. Perhaps we should try to do it in the week,
Yeah, we can do that.
not on Friday evening. Probably.
That makes sense too. I'll pick like a Wednesday and just see if we can find a time that works for everyone.
Okay.
Okay,
Cool.
cool.
All right, gentlemen. It was a pleasure.
See you next time.
Ciao.